Hello and welcome everyone to Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. I am your host, Nina Joshi. Have a couple of quick announcements before we bring on our guest for today. We have the Versali Challenge fast approaching on November 21st. So make sure that you register and join. The challenge is going to be a really incredible opportunity. And of course, we have our December summit coming up at the beginning of next month. Also going to be another incredible event. Make sure that you register to join. And with that, I would like to introduce our guest for today, Dr. Mary Catherine George, who is the Director of Clinical Research at Icahn School of Medicine for Mount Sinai. As you know, we love questions here at Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. So if you have any, please make sure that you use the Q&A feature or the chat, and I'll make sure that we get to it. With that, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to be here. I love attending this summit every Wednesday, and it's really wonderful to know that there's a focus and a lens for women in health and tech.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. And so, of course, MC, we love having you on. And I think really the best place maybe for us to start is for our audience to get to know you a little bit more. So I'd love if you could tell us just a little bit of a background, what has your journey been that has led you to where you are right now in the clinical research space?
Well, I always tell people that I have a very unicorn-like background.
Love it.
I started as an opera singer that came to New York, who was working with City Opera, who lost some funding and suddenly found myself without a job. And I was very fortunate that I had a brother working at St. Vincent's Hospital at the time with a wonderful researcher who said, I think he needs some help in research. Do you want to interview for that? And I was like, what? So I ended up in the midst of the HIV crisis in the early 90s and really cut my teeth on some amazing studies at St. Vincent's Hospital. We were doing everything you can imagine, overseeing 60 studies. I learned by the bootstraps, which was part of the kind of the climate at that time.
Mhm.
And then I loved it as things journeyed through. I ended up coming to Mount Sinai because of my desire to just grow and was fascinated with research and started working with the wonderful neurology department at Mount Sinai in the early 2000s and became even more fascinated because we
Amazing.
started writing studies and such. And someone said to me, well, if you want to be part of this game or this part of the process, you need to get a PhD.
Mm.
So I went back to school and got a PhD in health psychology. But my fascination for chronic pain and how to serve patient populations who are underserved is
Mhm.
really what got me started with HIV and now moving into what I think is really an underserved patient population, which is post-mastectomy pain syndrome, which is not very well understood, but it's very similar and complex, like the HIV chronic pain condition that
Mhm.
exists as well. But that's really what I love. I love championing that, diverse population because I feel like I'm also from that. You may not look at me and think of it, but I'm an Arabic background woman who grew up in the South from a first generation
Mm.
father from
Yeah.
Lebanon who escaped war time and basically cut my teeth on cropping tobacco as a
Mhm. Mhm.
child. So, I really understand the journey and
Mhm.
I bring that filter to everything that I do.
That is incredible. And I would love to learn a little bit more about the work that you're doing with the post, kind of that component
Mastectomy.
of, yeah. We'll get to it, but I'm so curious. I think one of the things that I would love to learn a little bit more about too, because for those of you who are not familiar, you were actually a finalist for HitLab's Health
Yes. Oh,
Challenge. So
yes. That
would
that
love if
was
you could share.
Oh, that was an exciting experience, and I have to really say I was dipped into such an intense week-long wonderful learning and exposure and just a lovely I can't even describe it. It was so intense. Every single day that led up to the challenge was just another day of a layer of learning. Because, to be able to share what you're doing as a researcher
Mhm.
to people quickly who want to maybe provide funding
Yeah.
or who want to provide support of any kind is a real skill that you don't come across, easily when you're doing research and science. It's not, you generally are given a platform that's much more involved, like 30 or 40 minutes to do a
Mhm.
presentation, not 5 minutes or 7 minutes.
Right.
So it's been a journey, but I learned so much, some of it that's really opened my eyes as to how to go about kind of traversing this pathway of how you bring something that's unique and technological to the scientific field, but also in parallel to how do you do this so that it also can become something in the business and marketing. That's something
Right.
we're not thinking of. Generally, it's
Mhm.
about publishing a paper. It's not about how do I get this to the marketplace and make it available. But
Right.
because I feel so passionate about serving this diverse population and bringing technology to women who are so often neglected in research
Mhm.
because they think about how many hats women wear.
Mhm.
We
Very.
wear a lot of hats. We wear a hat for jobs. We wear a hat for family. We wear a hat as a spouse. We wear a hat in our own personal career development. This is just, I don't know how people juggle it sometimes.
That's a very good point. We are definitely a jack of all trades when it comes to life. And I think that's so incredible. You bring up a really good point around, not only the scientific and innovation aspect, but really making sure that it does get in the hands of the people that need it the most. And so can you tell us a little bit more about Comfort Wave VR,
Yeah.
kind of what you're building, what you're doing?
Well, it's fascinating. I became very interested in how to develop something in technology back in the around the time when I graduated with my doctorate.
Hmm.
And it just really seemed like a wonderful way to pair behavioral treatments by delivering them in an easy presentation, such as just putting on a headset.
Right.
So I just kept thinking about what could be possible, what could be possible. And we had done a study back in 2013 that was about HIV chronic neuropathic pain that showed
Mhm.
that if we taught someone self-hypnosis and like take it home and do it themselves, that they would basically improve their pain. But
Wow.
self getting funding for behavioral treatments is not simple. But we
Hmm.
did have we had 40 plus patients enrolled. We saw benefit, and it just kept bothering me that why can't I make this more available to patients?
Hmm.
And that self hypnosis and this concept of teaching someone that or giving them access should be easy, and it's not.
Yeah.
So, that's what's given me this sense of how can I get this idea that's in my head about here, I don't just have to teach you, but here I can just hand it to you. And you can then use it freely as you would like to help you with your chronic pain. And that
Hmm.
and that basically you are using pain meds, seeing your pain provider, but here you take home a tool that you just have available to you to ease your ability to maybe soften the pain experience because,
Yeah.
you know, chronic pain is so different from one person to the other. I think
Mm.
that's what got me so engaged. I would see someone who was clinically the same and they would say they have a pain of 9 out of 10. They're excruciating. Yet the
Hmm.
other person, same clinical presentation,
Right.
oh, their pain is like a 3. They're very
Wow.
much. So that's the complexity of pain. No
Hmm.
one experiences pain the same as the other person next to them.
Totally.
So how do we figure out something to help in a generalizable way in science to have some kind of meaning? And that's why a lot of times our pain meds are not great. They don't
Mm,
really target. It's very difficult to target, although we're learning as we think more and more about patient-centered care, we're learning more and more about how to target it, but we're not there yet.
yeah,
We're
that's
not.
so fascinating. And I'm so curious about self-hypnosis for pain management. I just something I haven't really heard of or I'm super familiar with, but that is such a cool modality.
Well, here's that problem. It's something that we know works. Many
Hmm.
people who suffer with chronic pain know that it works, but how do you get someone access? So insurances don't cover it much. Finding a therapist who will do self-hypnosis with you, the variability between therapists and
Mm,
who can provide you that kind of same, what I would call this safe, imaginative space that
right.
encompasses sound, it encompasses visibility of something in your mind's eye. And so many people who have chronic pain, just finding a few moments to be
Mhm.
quiet, to do a meditation is a challenge.
Yeah.
So, how about giving someone this kind of immersive, three-dimensional, it has all kinds of layers for sound and narration. It's brief, that can bring a person to another experience beyond what they feel as pain. And
Hmm.
so we're in the very early stages. We've just finished testing the technology, and now I'm chomping at the bit to get patients with post-mastectomy pain syndrome to
Hmm.
experience it and tell me, so what do you think? And
Yeah.
really, I see this as a collaboration. I've always seen research as a collaboration. How can I get those patients who suffer with this condition?
Hmm.
And I think that's where the challenge is. Many women who are cancer survivors, they don't share that they suffer with this pain.
Oh, wow.
They see themselves as a survivor.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
how can I tell you how much pain I'm in
Hmm.
when I've gotten through this, this challenge of really coming to the other side of cancer?
Hmm.
And yet every day I wake up and I've got this kind of complex pain.
Definitely.
So, I really feel so passionate eh, to go after these patients. If you hear that, that's my dog who's like,
No.
he sees me on a camera talking into a computer. He's like, I want to be part of that.
We love
Um,
dogs here, so that's not a
exactly.
problem.
So, I want us to understand their condition and to have more engagement with this patient population because guess what? They're the highest population of pain experience in cancer.
Wow.
Yes,
I did not know that.
this is the most painful experience that exists in cancer from patients who are breast cancer survivors. So, in cancer, post-mastectomy pain syndrome is the highest chronic pain condition that there is.
Oh my gosh.
And the other problem is that we have this broad range of 30 to 60% of women who
Hmm.
suffer somewhere between moderate pain to severe pain, yet they don't really come forward. And so it's not very well understood. So I feel like what I'm trying to do is go after this patient population to do two things. One, help us understand that women can share that even though you've survived something, you could still have pain
Yes,
and
definitely.
talk about it and share how difficult it is. Because, when I've talked about this to just a few patients, um, they share about how it's difficult to wear clothing if the pain is there. It's difficult to think about having their breast reconstruction because of the fear
Mhm.
of having additional pain due to surgery. So, it is difficult. This is a very complex, multidimensional pain condition.
Yeah.
And I just feel so passionate to see how we can figure out a way to help these patients of women, most from diverse patient populations,
Mm.
have a pain solution that they can use and basically find some comfort.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's so incredible. Like what an amazing call to action, I think more broadly. And I'm so curious, as you were really explaining the problem, right, with post-mastectomy pain syndrome, but I would imagine just pain in general.
Oh,
You outlined like one of kind of the barriers is the variability in just therapeutics, right? And how
yeah.
there's maybe a lack of consistency as well as the stigma. I'm so curious, are there any other challenges or barriers that you've seen when it comes to maybe not only accessing treatment, but being in the right headspace mindset to be treated? Would love if you could share any insight just from all of the amazing work that you're doing in this space.
I think for me and why I really am so passionate is, technology, if you're in a certain group of people, is
Mhm.
so available to us and we don't think anything of it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But for some patient populations, it seems very far away for people who are older or
Mm.
people who are, maybe in not a socioeconomically a kind of rich background or education. And
Yeah.
so I really want to have this type of treatment available and to make technology less fearful or less, I want to make it something that people can easily um, use and follow through with and don't feel afraid or that you could break it. I think
Mhm.
some people think when they pick up a cell phone or iPad that somehow, oh, if I push this button, I could break it.
Yeah.
I really want to work hard with my patient population because I'm a qualitative researcher more than a quantitative researcher. And what does that mean? Well, I want to hear your story of how you experienced this treatment that I gave you to try. I want to hear about that. I want to hear how can I improve it? How did you use it? Was it hard? What could I do to help you do better with it? What could we do
Mhm.
to change it? And I think of how we do research as we move forward, getting our patients involved earlier than
Yeah.
later is the goal of what we need to do.
That's incredible. And I think on that note, just the power of having the patient's voice, the voice of the end user and have them almost be like you guys are co-developing something together.
Yes, without a doubt. I
Totally.
mean, every time I tell a patient who's interested in research, I said, listen, I can't do it without you. So if
Mhm.
you're not willing to collaborate, I can't, I'm just sitting here with an idea.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
not sitting, I mean, I would like it to be your solution, but without your partnership. And that's really what research needs to be seen as a
Mhm.
real partnership. And that's why I think being at the Icahn School of Medicine and the various labs that I work with Dr. Robinson Papp and Dr. Stuart Sealfon, and I'm developing my own lab. We bring this filter of how can we partner with you, our
Right.
community, our fellow, patients that we serve. How can we be partners? Not just I'm here to help you with a service, but really, truly, how can we, give into your thriving as a human being?
100%. I love that. And I think on that note, I'm so curious, speaking to the partnership and how vital that role plays, what are some of the insights, experiences, maybe challenges that you've seen when it comes to just the recruitment aspect of studies? Because that's its own, separate thing too.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of plays into a role of I have a study currently right now that we're getting ready to publish. And, without really kind of delving into it, having some understanding, a patient perception of when they walk through the door,
Mm.
what is your presentation as a research location? What
Right,
is that? How meaningful is it for the patient to see how clean it is, how organized it is? How well am I able to convey to you what you're going to experience, not only on the phone, but when you come into the location? Is it
right,
easy? Are we also addressing any challenges or barriers that you have? And women, I'm going to tell you, this is the thing that always blows my mind. And I have to push patients to tell me this. One, I say, listen, I want you to come into the study. Tell me, can you get here? You have any,
Mm,
can you get here? And listen, do you know how many times patients have told me, no, I can't get there. I don't have
wow.
enough money for a Metro card, or I
Mm,
don't know. And so one of the things we have done to make happen is how can we have a car service available to you?
right. I
And
like that.
so that has been, and even still trying to make sure that we have transportation. And then not only transportation, but how can I make it so that when you arrive, it's easy for you to find me?
Yes, definitely.
You know, that's another barrier. So
Mhm.
you really have to think about environment
Yes.
and communication from the moment you are working to get patients engaged in what you're doing
Hmm.
at the beginning, and that it can't be slow. It has to
Hmm.
be fast. So, we're working on that. And we're hoping we have a study called Neighbor that we have that's approved that we'll be promoting through the Department of Neurology, because we really do want people to collaborate with us and that we want to know what their barriers are to come
Hmm.
in and see us. And maybe maybe what happens is we basically come to them. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an idea that we definitely are presenting.
That's very interesting. I like when you were talking about the role of environment. It almost reminds me of, how they say that when realtors have an open house, they'll like bake cookies to give it a specific
Yes.
kind of comforting. It's
Listen,
something
if
similar.
I could have a cookie smell in the lab,
Yeah.
that's
How
a
amazing would
that's a
that
game
be?
changer. Oh,
100%.
I would love
Totally.
it. Can we put some kind of incense in the lab that smells like chocolate chips? There you go.
Done. Rakumen
That
Butterfield.
or a citrus. I mean, believe me, the truth is, and why I feel so passionate about what I'm developing with Comfort Wave is it engages almost all of your senses except smell.
Hmm.
And I think to me, the more we can do that with behavioral treatments,
Right.
engage that multifactorial component of who you are as a human being,
Hmm.
then that is what's going to help you to change your chronic pain. I know for me, I just had surgery, 14 days ago, and I used
Oh,
a lot of my own self-hypnosis and stuff, and it was a major surgery, not
yeah.
small. What can I say? Hysterectomy.
Hmm.
I'm someone who suffers with chronic pain on and off for issues that are
Yeah.
as you get older. And
Yeah.
I feel thrilled that I have this tool that I'm developing and have been
Totally.
using, and it's phenomenal. And
That's
I'm just
incredible.
hopeful that patients will feel the same way.
100%.
And I'm a little biased, though. What can I say?
But I mean, clearly it worked for you as, patient zero. So I think that's obviously a very good sign.
Well, I think every researcher who's inventing and who has an idea or something in their mind, they
Yeah.
do think of it in the context of their own circumstances in some
Right.
ways. Or
100%.
they have, or some patients have, or some researchers I know have a family member or someone
Hmm.
they relate to, and that's the passion that drives us.
100%.
Because frankly, it's not the money. As a researcher, you're walking around with the basket out.
Yeah. That is so fun. Yeah, I feel like there really is a personal story or something that's kind of grounding you to the work. That is so funny. I am so curious too, as you are not only kind of involved in the amazing work that you're doing for pain, but also just in your other hat that you're wearing as the director of clinical research, are there
Oh,
any kind of particular areas, things on the horizon, any trends that
oh,
you're seeing that you're just excited about when you think about the future?
there is an explosion of focus on women's conditions.
Mm,
Menopause, endometriosis. It's just amazing to me to see this phenomenal interest in chronic migraine and fertility. I think that, and hormonal dysfunction. I'm someone who suffers with PCOS, polycystic ovarian disorder, and I
Mhm.
was never able to have children. So, to have someone in the neurology department who's looking at the complexity of hormones and migraine, or hormones and your fertility health, or menopause or endometriosis, and how this can be earlier diagnosed and
Right.
helped for us to be a thriving, healthy woman in our life. And that's really, we really must make women's health a priority in research.
Mhm.
And so often it's not, and we don't also incorporate the barriers that women are challenged with. I need to have funding for caregiving, and I don't have a receipt. I need to have transportation easily take, all of those things. I need
Mhm.
to have a schedule that will work around if I work in the morning. I just cannot tell you to really work around those elements that make research difficult for women is
Right.
a priority. And I think that truly the NIH and the FDA have come out with some guidelines that are making this a mandate. And I'm excited to see that. And I'm excited as a woman's researcher that this
Mhm.
is becoming a bigger priority.
100%. That is so incredible. And it seems like there is not only a lot of excitement, but to your point, a lot of guidelines and kind of like systems in place to really make sure that women kind of have that seat at the table when it comes to the research.
And see, as a director of clinical research, that's my push all the time.
Mhm.
I'm always pushing, how can we extend this to those populations that are challenged? How can we make things more accessible? How can we help increase the funding for that patient to have transportation? I don't care what their disease is.
Yes.
Let's just make it happen. I don't care what the study wants to do. I always want to fight for that,
Mhm.
because if we don't have a diverse population in the study, how can we have something that's meaningful when it goes to the marketplace? And that's really what we need more and more as we bring treatments to patients for their care.
That's incredible. That's a call to action if I've ever heard of one. That is phenomenal. I do realize we're about a minute
Oh,
out. Time just
it
flew. We
flew.
definitely need to have you back for a part two MC, but one of
Well,
my
I would love to, because I tell you something, I'm learning so much about technology and engineering that it blows my mind.
Mm,
And
yes, you'll
so
have to share your insights with us, what you're learning with us.
I'm learning so much. It's unbelievable. So yes, it would be thrilling to come
I
back again.
would love that. And one of my favorite questions to ask at the end is, do you have any just general career advice for all of us who are listening right now? Whether it's something that maybe a mentor told you or just something that you've discovered, any words of wisdom to share?
Follow your curiosity.
Like
I
that.
am a curious person, and I find that by following my curiosity, here I went from, and I still sing and perform, and I've also done stand-up comedy and a variety of things. But following your curiosity, it makes your life so rich, and you meet so many people from such beautiful backgrounds and cultures, and it just every day makes waking up just a pleasure, because you're just so curious as to wonder what happened to X, Y, and Z.
100%. I love that. That's an incredible nugget of wisdom for us. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat and share all of the incredible work that you're doing. All right. Well, make sure you join us next week for our next Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. Wanted to thank our sponsors for sponsoring this incredible conversation. Also wanted to thank one more time Dr. Mary Catherine George for such an incredible conversation. For those that do want to reach out to her, we have her LinkedIn available in the chat. And we will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.